Let me say something that's going to annoy some of you. If you're trying to impress her, she already feels it. And the more you try, the worse it gets. You think you're being charismatic. You think you're bringing your best energy. You think you're showing value. But what she feels is effort. And effort, when it's pointed at her approval, feels like pressure. I've watched this happen in real time. A guy walks into a room relaxed, normal, talking freely. Then a woman he finds attractive joins the conversation. Suddenly, he gets louder, more animated. He starts telling stories that are slightly exaggerated, name-dropping a little, flexing subtly. He thinks he's elevating his presence, but what he's actually doing is broadcasting one thing: please, validate me. And women are extremely good at sensing that. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Trying to impress someone puts you below them automatically, because you only try to impress someone you think is above you. And the moment that hierarchy forms in your head, your behavior shifts. You stop expressing, you start performing. There's a difference. Expression is natural. Performance is calculated. Expression sounds like, this is what I actually think. Performance sounds like, what would she like to hear? That subtle difference kills attraction faster than most men realize. Let me tell you about something I caught myself doing years ago. I was on a date with a woman who was smart, sharp, successful, and every time she mentioned something impressive about her life, I felt this tiny urge to match it. She traveled, I'd traveled too. She had a strong opinion, I'd amplify mine. She mentioned something ambitious, I'd subtly position myself as equally ambitious. It wasn't obvious, it wasn't cringe, but it was reactive. I wasn't listening anymore, I was competing. And that competition energy, it creates tension. Not sexual tension, defensive tension. You can feel it in your chest when you're doing it. That subtle tightening, that little voice saying, don't fall behind. And once you're competing, you're no longer connecting. You're measuring. When you try to impress, you unconsciously speed up. You talk more than necessary. You fill silence because you're afraid silence makes you look boring. You avoid disagreeing because you're afraid friction will lower your chances. You overlaugh at her jokes. You overcompliment. You overshare achievements. And you think this makes you look high value. But it does the opposite. Because real value doesn't advertise. It exists. And the crazy part is, most women don't even consciously analyze this. They don't think, he's approval-seeking. They just feel something slightly off. Something slightly tense. Like you're leaning in too hard. And attraction doesn't grow when someone feels leaned on. It grows when there's space. Let's go deeper. Why do men try to impress in the first place? Because they believe attraction is earned through demonstration. If she sees how funny I am, if she sees how driven I am, if she sees how different I am, then she'll choose me. That mindset turns interaction into negotiation, and negotiation energy feels heavy. Attraction, especially early attraction, grows in lightness, in ease, in presence, not in persuasion. Here's another small story. I once had a friend who was extremely successful, good career, fit, socially capable. But around women he liked, he would subtly mention his income, his connections, his accomplishments, not directly, just enough to signal. And afterward he'd say, I just want her to know I'm not average. But what he didn't realize is that trying to prove you're not average often makes you feel average. Because if you truly believed you weren't average, you wouldn't need to highlight it. The men who feel magnetic usually aren't trying to be impressive. They're comfortable being slightly imperfect. They don't rush to correct every awkward beat. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't chase reactions. They let things breathe. That breathing room creates space, and space creates intrigue. Now here's the sharp part. If you're constantly trying to impress her, it means you don't believe you're enough without doing something extra. That's self-worth talking. And I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying it because that's where the real work is. Impressing is a strategy. But underneath strategy is insecurity. Underneath insecurity is fear. Fear that if she sees the unedited version of you, the calm, slightly flawed, unpolished version, she'll lose interest. So you compensate, you amplify, you polish. But the irony? The polished version feels less real. And people are drawn to real. Let me give you a subtle moment you've probably experienced. You tell a story. Halfway through, you realize it's not landing the way you hoped. You speed up the ending. You exaggerate a detail to make it more impressive. You add an achievement that didn't need to be added. You feel that tiny spike of discomfort. That's performance. A grounded man doesn't adjust mid-story to win approval. He finishes it as is. If it lands, great. If it doesn't, he moves on. That steadiness is attractive because it communicates something powerful. My emotional state isn't dependent on your reaction. That's security. And security is rare. Here's something most guys don't want to admit. A lot of confidence online is just well-packaged approval seeking. It's louder, flashier, more performative. But underneath it, it's still trying to get chosen. And when you operate from, "I need to be chosen," your body leans forward slightly. Your tone changes slightly. Your pace speeds up slightly. These micro shifts matter. The shift you need to make is simple, but not easy. Stop trying to get her to like you. Start seeing if you like her. And I don't mean that as a trick. I mean it as a real mental reframe. Because when you're evaluating two, your nervous system calms down. You're not pitching. You're observing. You're not climbing. You're standing. And when you stand, you don't rush. You don't overtalk. You don't oversell. You don't need to prove. Now, let's be clear about something. I'm not telling you to be cold. I'm not telling you to be indifferent. Indifference isn't attractive either. Women can feel that too. What I'm telling you is to replace performance with presence. If you're excited about something, express it. If you disagree, say it calmly. If you're quiet for a moment, let it be quiet. And don't panic inside that quiet. Because silence only feels threatening when you believe you need constant stimulation to hold attention. Attraction grows when there's emotional stability in the room, and performance is emotionally unstable. It's reactive, it's outcome-focused, it's always scanning. Presence is different. Presence doesn't rush. Presence doesn't chase. Presence doesn't try to control the vibe. It contributes and then relaxes. Let me give you something practical. Next time you're around a woman you like, notice this. Are you talking more than you normally would? Are you exaggerating slightly? Are you trying to steer the conversation toward topics that make you look good? If the answer is yes, pause. Literally pause. Drop your shoulders. Slow your voice. Ask something real instead of impressive. Listen fully, and then respond simply. Not strategically, simply. And watch how the energy shifts. Because here's what happens when you stop trying to impress. You become harder to read. Not in a manipulative way, in a grounded way. You're not scrambling to show your best angles. You're comfortable letting her discover you gradually. And gradual discovery builds tension, not flashy display. One more sharp truth before we close. Trying to impress is usually fear in disguise. Fear that if she sees the real you, it won't be enough. But here's what you don't realize. The edited version of you is what feels off. The overtuned charisma, the constant high energy, the slight bragging, it creates subtle dissonance because it feels like you're selling something, and nobody relaxes around someone who's selling. Real attraction feels collaborative, two people exploring, not one person performing. So what do you do instead? You slow down, you speak normally, you hold your frame. You don't overlaugh, you don't over-explain, you don't rush to fill silence. You let moments land, you let her invest too. Because if you're doing all the emotional labor in the interaction, you're not building attraction, you're chasing validation. And chasing never looks powerful. Let me leave you with this. The man who's trying to impress is slightly leaning forward. The man who's grounded is leaning back just enough. Not detached, not distant, just centered. And that centering, that's what makes women curious. Not your stories, not your achievements, not your clever lines, your steadiness. Stop trying to win her. Start being someone worth knowing. And watch how much lighter everything feels. Before we get into the next one, if these videos are helping you see things differently, make sure you're subscribed. I'm building this channel for men who want clarity, not noise. The next video might hit a little deeper. Why you're attracted to women who feel unavailable. If the women who stress you out feel magnetic, and the calm, consistent ones feel boring. That's not random. That's conditioning. We're breaking down the psychology behind why chaos feels like chemistry and how to stop repeating the same pattern. This one might change how you see your entire dating history. I'm Mark, and this is Mark on Dating.